Hi all, this is Skate, and I quickly wanted to make a video on the Update 4.3 buffs and nerfs. Now this is something I was hoping to get out yesterday, however I had issues trying to access the test client. Now obviously the news came out yesterday about what the changes are, however I still wanted to share my opinion on these things. Now, there's 4 tanks I'm going to focus in this video, the first one being the M41 Walker Bulldog. There have been buffs to both the autoloader and the single shotgun. Both are very, very welcome buffs. Now, looking at the autoloader first, the reload between shells has been reduced from 2.5 seconds to 2 seconds, and the magazine reload has been reduced from 13.42 to 11.51. They're both really, really good things, especially that 2.5 to 2 seconds. Accuracy has then been improved, with the dispersion going from 0.384 to 0.364. 0.364 isn't exactly amazing, but it's a damn sight better than 0.384. A 76mm single shot, the reload has been reduced from 5.46 to 4.31. And then the accuracy has been improved dispersion-wise from 0.355 to 0.345. So welcome changes there, because it's a fun little tank, it's just lacking. I don't think this is going to make it anywhere near OP, but it's certainly going to be a lot better than it was. Next up then is the IS-7. Now, in the article released, it says, the thickness of the side screens was reduced to 5mm. Doesn't really give a lot of information. To be a bit clearer on that, they're referring to this area I'm running the cursor along now. That is the spaced armour on the side of the IS-7. It's reduced to 5mm from 30, so it's a fairly significant drop. Underneath that then you still have 100mm of very, very aggressively sloped side armour. So it's still going to be fairly good, but you're not going to get those really, really irritating bounces like you're used to off the side of the IS-7. I'm a fan of the IS-7, but again, it's not something I think is a huge deal. I'm not disappointed by it. Let's be fair, it kind of needed it. If you don't think the IS-7 needed a small nerf, even just that tiny area of spaced armour, you are barking raving mad. It's only lost 25mm of its spaced armour. It will make a difference in regards to those really irritating bounces off the side, but it will still be a very, very strong tank. Now what I want to focus my video on, more than anything, is these things. The Centurion 7.1 and the FV4202. No. I must admit, when I read the information about what they're doing to these tanks, I was really agitated. And I still am agitated by this, because, did you know, in 4.3, the Centurion is about to have the 3rd from worst DPM at tier 9 of every single tank in tier 9. Do you know what it's beaten by? Worst DPM goes to the MBT, or the Kampfpanzer 70. With no equipment on it, and no consumables provisions, blah blah blah, it has 1,867 DPM. In second place, for second lowest DPM, is a VK 4502B. Now, both of these tanks have one thing in common. They have insanely good armour. The VK 4502 has 1,985 DPM, again with no provisions, etc, etc. The Centurion will have 2,085, 100 more than the VK. Why, you ask? well, look at it. They have crazy armour. The Centurion has a good turret, it has average mobility for a medium tank, and it has a really, really bad big hull. So why has it got such poor DPM? Well, the answer you're looking for is Hesh. It's got really, really good Hesh, so they feel that it needs to be nerfed based on that. But wait! Hesh! It's been nerfed from 210 penetration 270 millimeters of penetration. Really? So you've given it the worst DPM of any medium tank? And on top of that, there's only 2 tanks in tier 9 with worse DPM. And they're both really heavily armoured. All basically to compensate Hesh. But yet Hesh has been nerfed from 210mm of penetration to 170. Is it just me that's really confused by this? And then I thought, okay, I'll look into this a little bit more. Maybe I'm being a little bit moronic on this, purely because it's a British tank and it's an icon of a tank. So I looked into it a little bit more. Here's what it says on the article. The effect proved so strong that now these vehicles deal the highest average amount of damage in their tiers. Now, is it just me, or is that a very, very bold claim? And thanks to things like Tank Compare from Blitzstars, we can have a look at this. And we can have a look at this based on the last 90 days. And no, they're not top of their class or their tier in any shape or form. Let's have a look at the Centurion. Centurion has done an average damage, this is over the last 90 days, remember, of 1,632. That's top of its class, or top of its tier, according to that article. Yet it's beaten by the M46 pattern, the T54E1, the MBT has 1,962 average. There's so many, and I haven't even got them all up here. I mean, I'm just going to add a random one. Let's add something with good DPM. Jagdtiger. 1,785. Again, way more average damage. Let's add another one at random. What should we go with? Let's try the new light tank. Zebatchat 25T AP. 1,985. So no, it's not top of its class or tier in terms of average damage. So I don't know where that information has come from of the highest average amount of damage in their tiers. I would love to know if by any chance there is a Wargaming member of staff watching this. Please share with us, because we have access to information which says completely the otherwise. And you're going to leave us confused. And more than that, frustrated. Because this tank had poor DPM as it was. And it now has even lower DPM and less effective Hesh, which I haven't even got started on yet. Ah, why you do this to me? Right. Any single tank, except for those 2 we mentioned, will out-DPM this thing. Anybody knows that they can rush you, and there is a high probability that they are going to out-DPM you all day long. Which kind of restricts your playstyle in the Centurion then to second line, really far back on the ridges if there's nothing in front of you. Because if you go too far forward and the person you're up against knows what they're doing or knows about some stats on tanks, they're going to know that they can out-DPM you. Everybody does, except 2 tanks. And let's be fair, you'd probably still lose a one-on-one if a VK came pushing you, because they have crazy armor. You don't. And I know some people are going to be thinking, don't let them push you. That is not an answer. If I am in something like a T54 and I see a Centurion, I'm going to rush him, because I will out-DPM him all day long. In fact, if I am in any tank except a VK, I know I can out-DPM them. And even if I was in those 2 tanks, I've got better armor, so I'd have the confidence to win that scenario. Now, logically, a Centurion is not going to want to allow someone to push him, but you can't always dictate and guarantee that with tactics, because, well, guess what? Other people use tactics too. Well, sometimes. So if your tactic is to hide a ridge, pop up, go back, pop up, and so on and so forth, you're not always going to be able to do that if someone pushes you. And this is just one example of a scenario where this tank is now screwed. And this FV4202 it finds itself in exactly the same situation. In fact, I'd be inclined to argue that the FE4202 in many aspects is in a worse situation, because it doesn't have a good turret. In fact, its turret is bloody awful. Now, in all fairness, your rate of fire hasn't been hit as hard. It's gone from 7.29 to 7.86, where the Centurion, on the other hand, has over a 10-second reload. It's still not a good situation. These tanks weren't the best at DPM anyway, which is where your Hesh came into it. 210 mil on your Hesh, which, by the way, you paid an arm and a leg for, so it balanced out. And on top of that, Hesh wasn't exactly that reliable, and it's even less reliable and less useful now. If you knew what you were doing with Hesh, you know you could put it into a flat side of an E100 turret, or the flat back of an E100 turret. Only as an example, you can't do that anymore with 170mm. The icing on the cake? You're still expected to pay 10 gold for that round, or 4,000 silver for that Hesh round, even though it's 50mm less effective. So Hesh still costs an arm and a leg, DPM has been reduced, and the Hesh shell's effective penetration has been reduced from 210 to 170. These aren't little things. That's 50mm. No, it's not. It's 40. Duh. It's 40mm less. I'm tired, okay? Nonetheless, that's picking at straws. It's still 40mm less. That's just... why? I'm really frustrated by this, and I'm left so confused. And that's my biggest thing, is I'm confused by this. If somebody said or explained it in a way which made sense to us as the players, we could go, oh yeah, okay, I get it now, fair enough, I'll be on my way now. But I can't, because none of it makes any sense. Do you know what I think the catalyst for this situation was? And again, this is my personal opinion. However, they previously got rid of the Hesh and changed it to Heat because Hesh was too complicated and it needs to be made easier for people to use, because not a lot of people used it or understood it. That was it. That's the catalyst in my head. If they didn't change it, it would have been fine as it was. It was quirky, it was something unique. Look at how I'm trying to aim there, in that tiny little turret ring, at exactly the right angle to get the Hesh to work. That is the only place you're going to penetrate in E100. I'm checking the back now with the Hesh, and as you can see, there's just no hope. But yeah, that's when things changed for these tanks, and it all went downhill. We don't want tanks which are easier to understand. Even as new players, nobody's going to learn. I, as a new player, loved the idea of the Centurion 7.1 because it had Hesh. It was unique. It had a unique touch. By removing it, you make it all tanks the same with very slight alterations. We need tanks which have unique styles to them. Hesh is that. Taking things like that away takes away a dynamic from the game. It's a reason to grind this line which no other line gives you. Surely from a wargaming perspective, that's something you would want. A different reason to encourage someone to grind a line other than, another medium tank line, what's the point in grinding it? It gives something else. And if people don't understand it, make guides. Don't make it easier. Provide guides, provide correct instruction, advertise more guidance. Give some training on how different shells work. I don't think I've ever seen it in the game, other than that HE provides more damage. Oh god, I hate that one. There is no instructional information on what each type of shell does, really. Let's be fair, there's not. And in some aspects it's self-explanatory. But in so many other aspects, it's not. So making it easier doesn't make it better. Providing instruction on how people can enjoy the full dynamics of all the different things which are there make it much more fun. And if that was done, we wouldn't even be in this situation where these tanks are just keep going downhill. They could have just been left alone and they could have just got on with things, and in fact people could have enjoyed the Hesh as the premium. I don't usually do this in videos. In fact, I never do this in videos. What I'm going to ask you guys to do, because it's a very clear indicator. If you agree with my points on the Centurion and the FV4202, give this video a like. If you disagree with my points and think they needed said nerf, give this video a dislike. Easy as that. I could put a poll on the side of this where you give a vote, etc. How many people are going to check that, honestly? Yet the like and the dislike is right below the video. And if somebody watches the video and goes, oh, I wonder actually, what do people think about this situation? Including possibly Wargaming people who flick on the videos to see what we're talking about, what we feel about the game. And they could see that and see whether I'm just barking raving mad and people completely disagree with me, or whether you agree with my frustration on this one. Either way, a very frustrated Skate is going to sign out now because I've been ranting on for a fair while now. Little less upbeat than my usual video, but we do still have to look at these things, and, well, I really wanted to share my opinion on this topic. But I hope you have enjoyed the video. Thank you for watching, and I will catch you in the next one. Bye-bye.